Hey, it's John Lee Dumas of EO Fire, and it's The Entrepreneurial You, the show for dedicated and passionate Caribbean entrepreneurs seeking daily inspiration, brought to you by author, speaker, and award-winning entrepreneur Heneka Watkis-Porter. You must be prepared to ignite.
Coming up on this episode of The Entrepreneurial You,
entrepreneurs should have their financials available, their current performance, one, yes, but also what are the plans? So what's the projections for the next 3 years? And be able to speak to those investors about those projections and existing financials without even looking at them.
welcome back to The Entrepreneurial You. I'm your host, Heneka Watkis-Porter. Today's episode is brought to you by Bookophilia, Peak Performers. Are you looking for a space that fosters a peaceful and productive working environment for writing and multifaceted creative expression? Then Bookophilia is the place to be. At 22 years old, when many young people are chasing after fun in the fast lane, today's guest decided to start his own company, eMedia Interactive, which is a digital media, advertising, and training company powered by technology, creativity, and innovation. It's my pleasure to welcome eMedia's founder, president, and CEO, Tyrone Wilson, to the Entrepreneurial You. Welcome, Tyrone.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Great. I have a fun question for you before we get started. So, if you had a time machine that would work only once, what point in the future or in history would you want to visit and why?
Yeah, fun question, but a deep one. I would say the 70s in Jamaica. I think that's a period where, our music and cultural space began to take shape. It would have been quite an experience to have existed in that period.
Awesome. And of course, you're in the creative industry, so it makes a lot of sense for you. Now, let's get rock and rolling. What was childhood like for you growing up?
For me, childhood was fun. I mean, I grew up in the inner city, in Kentyre, Papine, and, it's just one of the most memorable moments of my life, just being that free, roam around, at the river, camp, playing every single sport we came across, just kind of being there and experiencing that side of life kind of prepared me for everything that I face today. So, I would say, my childhood experience was pretty much a well-rounded one.
But when you were growing up, you're saying that upon reflection and so on, when you were growing up, what was your thought process like? What was your thinking like about your own childhood then?
I mean, I always embrace it. I think, one of the things that I learned growing up, especially being in an inner city community, is that you have to work twice as hard as the average person who don't grow up in such an environment. You have a lot that you're trying to achieve. One of that is just trying to be able to get out of the community and into something that presents more opportunities for you. So we knew that the foundation isn't as strong. So we have to work very hard just to set a foundation, and then trying to achieve what comes after.
And for you at the time, were you always an A student, or were you an A student? How are you academically?
I think I've always been up and down. I definitely was, in primary school, one of the top students there. I would say in my class at all times, at least top 5. When I went to Jamaica College, for the first 3 years, I was, mediocre in terms of academics. And then in fourth form, I decided to take it more seriously. And graduated as a top student in fifth form, top student in sixth form. So yeah, always had it in me, but never really embrace it. Only if it's competitive, that's when I flourish.
Okay, so you flourish in competition. So you mentioned that up to third form, you were pretty much, a mediocre kind of student. I mean, what light bulb went off in your head when you decide, you know what, I'm going to have to make a change and do better?
Light bulb.
Or did one ever go off in your head? Was it overnight that you decided, you know what, I'm going to do things differently?
So again, I think, as I say, it's competition or a challenge. My father instituted a little thing when we started traveling, my brother and I. He wouldn't buy any shoes for us above the price of our average. Right? So if my average was 40, I get a $40 shoes, right? And the shoes that we wanted were $70, $80, $90. So of course we had to get some good average to be able to get those sneakers or those shoes like the Timberland and those things. So that kind of started pushing me to say, all right, boy, I need these things. All right, so I'm just going to get some Payless shoes, right? But then I think in fourth form we had an accounting teacher who was like me, loved the competition, and he understood and figured out how to work with boys, how to work with an all-boys school to get them to perform academically, and he instituted a very competitive system. Devon Lawrence of his system was, he had a test every month along with your coursework, and the person who comes first is the prime minister, so he gets a special seat at the front, and he also gets an orange juice from the person who get the last in the test. And then the prime minister has his cabinet, which is consisted of that row of students who get the other high grades, and then you have the opposition and those things. So it was that motivated me, and ever since I was the prime minister, so much so that I changed my name to Fidel, because I was just always beating them, I was always winning, and I said, this is no longer a democracy, communism, I'm Fidel.
Interesting.
Right, so I had that title of top accounting student throughout 4th, 5th, lower 6, upper 6, but it transcended beyond accounts. It motivated me to just be a top student in everything else. So in sixth form, luckily I was the top student in terms of grades, and the first student in that batch to get accepted. I got a unconditional acceptance from UWI. Saying no matter what happened in upper 6, you're accepted in the institution. And those things were great for me. The level of competition and so forth that drive the success.
Such an inspiring story. So fast track to when you were just 22 years old, you started your own business. How did that come about?
I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I think it started as early as primary school, because my father always used to have some business cards and letterhead, right? I don't see my father going to work at any point in time during that stage. But he used to always have some business cards, and it's a businessman. That's what is on the business card. And the business name, Rolex. His name is Roland, so I call his business Rolex. And, as a young boy that look up to your father and so forth, when they ask you in school, what do you want to be? You tell them a businessman, right? So
that's what your father, yes.
Right. So it has always been in my mind, to become that. So it stayed there. And even though, the primary objectives have changed early, at one point I wanted to be a lawyer. or an accountant. The fundamental principle of it all is that I wanted to, even if I'm a lawyer, I wanted to own my own law firm. Even if I'm an accountant, I want to own my own accounting firm. And, that interest in becoming an entrepreneur, just continued to exist, and I moved from that to just getting right into it.
And now take us through the genesis of eMedia Interactive from the conceptualization stage to where you are now.
Right. So the concept of eMedia started in college. I was a publications chairperson at the Guild of Students. And
that's at the University of the West Indies?
That's at the University of the West Indies. And I was responsible for the entire publication of content for students, for the student body, right? And so from the fresher guide to the newspaper, campus newspaper, to any other material that's coming from the student representation of our body to the students, I had responsibility for outside of PR, public relations. So it was pretty exciting. I had a decent budget, and we had a voice. And, from wanting to have my own business in media, because a year before I'd started a entertainment and lifestyle website, yardmedia.com. I got the opportunity and the guild to experience what it's like running your own business with actual money, right? And, I just never looked back from then. I developed my business plan, and we pretty much, got the investment from Chris Williams, who is now CEO for Proven. And we just moved from a small business to getting additional investor support from Sagicor Investment. We raised $350,000 to expand the business in video, original content, and so forth, and structuring a board of directors chaired by Richard Biles, who's the CEO of Sagicor. And it just has really been quite an experience. Lots of downs and lots of ups and so forth.
On this note, we're going to take a break right here, and just to thank my sponsor. And then when we come back, I want you to talk us through how we prepare our businesses for investment. Peak performers. Success is something that we gradually work towards as an end goal, but we need to be in the right environment to make it happen. Bookophilia is dedicated to providing a space for book, coffee, and tea lovers, creatives, educators, students, and professionals who want ideas, innovation, and inspiration. They have a variety of high-quality books, a cafe, events such as book launches, signings, and art exhibitions, and professional services uniquely tailored to your needs, culture, and tastes. Their environment provides for the full literary arts experience, allowing for multifaceted creative expressions. Find them on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Bookophilia. Let's get back to our chat with Tyrone Wilson of eMedia Interactive. Now tell us, Tyrone, you have managed, as you alluded to earlier, allow your company to get an investment from Sagicor of $350,000. That's no easy feat, right? So I want you now to take our listeners or our peak performers who are listening, take us through how it is we prepare our businesses for investment.
Right. So I think the best way to advise of fundraising is to walk through my own experience.
Right.
My degree is in banking and finance. And I'm running a creative business, and a lot of times people think that I went to Carimac and so forth, but I was in banking and finance, economics, and management departments, a joint program. And from that, I got a lot of exposure on how banks work, how investment companies work, how the balance sheet look, how certain deals are structured. And the biggest part of the most exciting part for me in that program, banking and finance, was the finance part. And when I was approached by Donovan Perkins, who at the time was the CEO of Sagicor Investment, I had no idea they wanted to invest. I went to a meeting at their request, and we started having a discussion, and they were asking me about the business and what are my plans for taking it to the next level. And I think right there I was caught off guard, and that would be one of my first tips for aspiring entrepreneurs that are individuals who are looking for funding, is to always be ready.
Preparation is key.
Preparation is key. And I was always working on what's next for my business. So when they asked, for me, it was a no-brainer. I started outlining to them
all the grand plans that you have, right?
All the grand plans that I have for the business, right? And they liked them and so forth, and the discussion moved to financing. So equity investment is always important. As a young business, that's the type of investment you need, are things that they call patient capital. Individuals who are willing to put some funds in your business and allow you the opportunity to explore the ideas and take some bets and deliver on what is needed. So I knew that whatever deal it is that we're looking from with Sagicor has to be something that gives us room to grow. And our deal wasn't equity, but it wasn't debt. It was a hybrid. It was a convertible note, only at a small coupon rate, and convertible into equity based on the performance of the business over time,
right?
Especially when you're looking to list on the stock exchange. So entrepreneurs should have their financing available. Their financials available.
Right.
Their current performance, one, yes, but also what are the plans? So
what's projections?
What's the projections for the next 3 years? And be able to speak to those investors about those projections and existing financials without even looking at them, right? You'd have to know your business and know what is it that you have planned. You're the driver, you're the captain. You have to be as intimate as possible with the state of affairs for your business. So the investors I've dealt with quite a few investors. I've recently raised some more equity for my business that enabled the expansion into our creative school. And a lot of people,
before we get into the creative school, which I want you to talk about a little as well, I want you to give me a little more foundation in terms of preparing for the investment, getting your board of directors or advisory board and so on, things like that must be in place, you know what I mean? The checks and balances and stuff like that. So
when Sagicor approached me about the investment, I was 24 years old.
How old are you now?
31.
Okay. Yes, we're putting a number on it.
Right. Very young entrepreneur at the time. And what impressed them is that I had an advisory board and I was having board meetings, and I had my minutes, I had my reports, and that was very unique for an entrepreneur my age at the time to be so serious about those things. And I really credit it to Chris Williams and Cherie, because they were the ones that ensured that those structures were in place.
And who are these people?
Chris Williams, now CEO for Proven Investments. Sherry Martin is Vice President of Energy Delivery at JPS now. She was head of marketing for National Commercial Bank at the time. And they were the ones that took me on very early, gave me the mentorship and the support and the guidance, and ensured that these structures were in place. And, I had the level of discipline to ensure that we did that I ensure that we committed to those systems, right? That was important, and Sagicor was impressed by that. And right away, they knew they were investing in somebody who understand
what it means to be in business, yeah.
Right, and when people are giving their money, the level of responsibility that you need to display in a business. So that was a comfort for them.
And so far, I've heard you talk about, so two things that you've mentioned that really jump out is one, your financials and making sure that you have that in place. And two, it's important to have a team in place. It may not necessarily be a paid team, but have a team in place.
Yes. Once those investors feel a level of comfort, you have to kind of hold hands and start to drive the process along. So I had an advisory board, but I knew that they would want a board of directors. And those were stipulations in the agreement. And, I moved right away to setting up that board.
And what were some of the considerations you had to think about when you were setting up your board?
So when you look at, setting up a board has a lot to do with the type of business that you have, and also the type of support that the entrepreneur needs at the time. Remember, I was a younger entrepreneur at the
you're
time.
Still young.
And I needed mentorship support also. So the board wasn't just a governance board to, be hard on the CEO and say what is going on, but also a set of people who understand the cycle of the business and the stage that we're at now and what is needed. So like Sandra Glasgow, for example, was a CEO of the PSOJ at the time and one of the best in terms of corporate governance locally, came on the board, and she, today is like a mother to me, but she's also very tough, and she's big on corporate governance, and even though we weren't as strong as we should have been in corporate governance, without Sandra it would have been 10 times worse. Mm-hmm. And so we knew that we needed someone in corporate governance who understands small business and know to work with young entrepreneurs. And Sandra was kind enough to come on board.
Literally,
right? And guide through that process. Sherry, of course, was a shareholder, so she would have gotten a board seat at the time based on the amount of shares that she had in the business. But also she understood the business. So Sandra came on a few years after we've started. Sherry was there from day one. So we needed people in the business outside of the CEO who knew the company, who can back him up in instances, and also to challenge thoughts and processes because of historic relationship with the organization. And then you need individuals like Richard Biles, who is just the best CEO locally, in my opinion, who operate a very large company and who can guide you to take you to that next level that you want to be. Mm-hmm. And he has been doing that and still continue to do that with me. So we had a diverse board, young, old, in between, who were very right picks at the time for the business. And and entrepreneurs coming up who are looking to set up these structures, just have to look at their business and do a little gap analysis and say, okay, this is what the business needs, and, just put that in place. You do have to pay these people. My board members aren't paid. I give them shares in lieu of fees. It works different ways.
Right. And so at the beginning, right, how did you approach these all big names to come on board in support of what at the time, yes, they could have looked at it and say, this is a great plan and it will succeed, but they had really no way of knowing. So how were you able to convince them, as it were, to be a part of your team?
Be a good salesman. Sometimes people think that sales is about selling products. I'm into the business of selling ideas. I'm into the business of selling a vision. And that's exactly what I did with my directors and shareholders. I sell them a long-term vision for the business, and they bought into it and they committed.
So obviously at the time you had to know what your why was so that you can help others to see that and explain that vision so that they buy into it. And you alluded to earlier, you were about to talk about the school because you're into the business of selling ideas, right? And now you have, in addition to your company that is involved in, filming and so on, you now have a creative school. How did that come about, and why was there a need for that to happen?
Yeah, so the school was an idea that was developed 5 years ago. The truth is, we realized very early that there's a big need for creative talent in Jamaica, and our creative economy is underserved. And we need more people who understand entrepreneurship, who are creatives and are able to create the type of content that we need, and the type of intellectual property that we need in order to contribute to the economic growth. It has been hugely neglected by policymakers and so forth, because a lot of them really just don't understand. When we look at the British economy, last year, the creative economy contributed 5% to their GDP, the largest contributor and the fastest growing. Mm-hmm. And we are taking that for granted locally. But like any other economy, the first way to develop that is to have trained people working there. Mm-hmm. And if we look at the actuary industry 15, 20 years ago, it's not as advanced as it is today. Back then, financial businesses, insurance companies, and those who have their large risk departments and so forth, who are structuring these type of products, could not grow as fast because, they needed actuaries too. And we didn't have a lot of them, but now we have a lot of actuaries. And the economy has grown so big based on a lot of the work that they have done, in addition to other areas, to really develop the financial industry. So Jamaica is a very mature and advanced and strong financial industry, and that's based fully on the level of talent that was developed early. In 2004, when I started college, banking and finance degree, they only accepted 40 students per year. And I was lucky to get into that program. But if you look at the banking and finance degree program now, they have a couple hundred people, right? It just shows the level of growth that the economy, that financial economy experienced, and the vision at UWI at the time, who pretty much saw the need for such a program. That was very important for us. So we created the iCreate Institute, which is now fully an institute under the University College of the Caribbean. Well, the University of the Commonwealth Caribbean. They've recently rebranded. And, our need is to really train the future of our creative economy and see the growth in this space.
Awesome. Because there's so much money to be made from the orange industry, as they call it, the creative industry.
Right.
Your final word to our community.
There's always an excuse as to why we can't do something. And our responsibility is to find ways to get it done. Jamaica needs so much in terms of development, and I believe that the only way we're going to build our country, build our economy, and anywhere else in the world is through entrepreneurship. People are bold enough to create change. And, my circumstances would have said otherwise, but I decided not to listen and push to develop in the company that we have today. And I feel very proud about it and the work that my team has been doing over the last few years. So I would say, just go after what you want to achieve in life. As cliche as it might sound.
Yeah, but that's just it. Just go for it.
Yes.
Just do it. All
Yes.
right. No doubt our community members here listening were very inspired by what you had to say, and they want to make contact with you. Share your details with us.
Yeah, our website is joinemedia.com, joinemedia.com, and our contact number is 876-665-0772, and our email address is info@joinemedia.com.
And persons want to connect directly with you, Tyrone, on Twitter. Share your Twitter handle.
Right. So, not sure if you want to follow my Twitter, but you can follow me on call_Tyrone_W, and the same on Instagram. You can find me on call_Tyrone_W.
I am personally inspired by you, Tyrone. I have been watching you from a distance,
Yes.
watching your growth. We had an early encounter at some point when you just started, right? And
Yes.
I've watched you progress, and it's inspiring to me, and I'm sure those listening, and as they even do more research, into your company and who you are, they'll become even more inspired. So I want to thank you for spending time with us today. It was an awesome pleasure.
All right. Thank you very much. I enjoyed it.
If you've enjoyed this free podcast, please show your love and support by heading over to HenekaWatkis-Porter.com and click in the subscribe in iTunes button. Leave your rating and review, and hopefully you will leave us a 5-star rating. We would really love that. Thank you to our peak performers for tuning in. Until next time, I'm Heneka Watkis-Porter. Remember, you were born to win, but to be a winner, you must plan to win, prepare to win, and expect to win. Walk good.